week 48, July 19th, 2026. On Sunday, down at the Creek and Cave. This was a crazy week, as is not unusual at the Standup Accelerator. We usually go to 3 to 5. This time we went from 5:30 to 7 because there was a watch party at the club for the World Cup final between Argentina and Spain, which was a great opportunity for a lot of Americans to learn that those are two different countries. It was fun. There's a big crowd there. I watched like the last 15 minutes, which is probably the most soccer I've ever watched in my entire life. We had a little bit of smaller turnout because of the time change. There were 16 people. 5 of them were new. We had Leela, Yokisha, Christopher, Patrick, and Javier, who all participated, all seemed to have fun. So we will see if they keep coming back. We jumped in this week by talking about career, as always, and see who had made money in entertainment. Javier, turns out he's a DJ, and so makes money as a roving DJ around town. And I mentioned you can mix stand-up into that, and I asked him if he ever talked to the audience, as a way of adding to the entertainment. And he said no, that wasn't his thing. But there are people who do. A lot of that stuff gets mixed together, and stand-up will mix with anything, which is kind of the cool thing about it. I've worked with jugglers, magicians, hypnotists, dancers, strippers, you name it. They all like to tell jokes. I used to have a friend who had a job as a writer for David Lee Roth, the head singer for Van Halen, and he would travel on tour with Van Halen, writing David Lee Roth's in-between song banter, because David Lee Roth liked to tell jokes, and so my buddy wrote him jokes. Then we jumped in and kept going with what we've been working on, which is story. This is our 5th or 6th week on story. We've now covered plot, characters, adding in detail, emotions, behaviors, and this week was dialogue. So what do your characters say? And in stand-up, it's super important. You get a lot of really great laughs and extra flavor, extra visual energy, dimensionality and variety into your show when your characters talk. And you can quote them and just talk about the actual text of what they say, or you can act it out. And if you're a good performance comic, you get all that extra flavor of different voices, different faces, behaviors, so the characters come to life in front of everybody. Not absolutely necessary to do it that way, but it adds dimensions. Like, I don't do characters. I can do rednecks. That's about the only voice I can do. So the idea, again, within what we're working on right now is to use all these story tools that we've developed, those 6 things, and use that to structure the story and make it stimulating and interesting. And then secondly, you start adding in all the stand-up techniques to add humor to the story. So punchlines, tags, act-outs, original ideas, questions, and veers are what we've worked on so far. As I would say, those are probably the 6 main persuasion or stand-up tools that you use to create stand-up comedy. So the idea is to use all the story techniques and then all the comedy stand-up techniques, and suddenly you have amazing script, which is what we're all looking for to get to pro-level, A+ material that you can take on stage that always works and kills. It doesn't just amuse or kind of amuse. It crushes everywhere you go. I start all that with, once again, running through my brother bit, which is, I do have a brother who's Christian, but he's not as evangelical as I talk about him, but he's more interesting as a super evangelical. So the bit is essentially, I have a brother who's an evangelical Christian. He sends me links to inspirational websites to try to convert me. And so I send him links to hardcore internet porn to try to convert him. And it goes from there. So he's a character that I can use in that story. And from there on, it's just punchlines and tags. We broke into 4 small writing groups. Everybody worked on a character themselves. Again, with the idea that now you have 3 other people helping you punch up the story, make it stimulating using all the story tools, and then punch up the comedy, making it funnier and funnier using all the stand-up tools. Then we jumped on stage, which is always a blast. There's always such weird things going on a stand-up stage, especially when you're workshopping things. Pat is really bringing his evil mother character law mother-in-law character along. It really is getting better every week because the material is getting more and more detailed, starting to get punchlines in there, starting to get visuals. So it's fun to watch it grow. Chris is still baking stuff about his mom, who's, I guess, bipolar, and wove her own swimsuits, or crocheted her own swimsuits, a lot of crazy stuff. Anastasia, who is her own character, actually slowed down this week, did great. You could understand the lines, and she got really good laughs. Devin is still working on his tall, misogynist uncle character. Need to give more punches to it, add more comedy. ZZ, always fun to watch, and she's talking about wanting to be a professional witch. So she is her own character in the story, and we're still trying to develop that. Patrick went up. He was a new guy in the workshop and was the closest to like straight stand-up that I've seen for a while in the workshop. He got up and talked about an Italian character that he was creating, and it was just punchline, 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 punchline about all the stereotypes of Italians. And some of it was fine. Like, there were some good jokes in there, which I have no problem at all. Like, if people just want to do jokes, and not really do the other stuff, as far as like constructing a real story, it's fine. Some of the jokes were a mix of A, B, and C jokes, so he still needs to increase the quality of all the jokes if you're going to do just jokes, because you live and die with each joke. Then let's see, Rancher John went up and talked about his younger brother. It's always fun to watch John go on stage. He brings his dog Jack on stage, and John is a presence. So he told a story. We need to increase the sort of details and quality of the story, and then start hitting it with comedy. Casey went up. Casey has the opposite problem of most people. She is all, animation and likability and friendliness, but she's starting to bake in punchlines into her script about John, the rancher John who just went up. And it's working. You can see some of the punchlines start to come alive, and people can start to, laugh along with the actual image that she's painting of John. Rachel went up and complained about her grandmother, who is a complainer. Sort of an interesting twist. And then Yokisha went up and talked about dating and breaking up with a crust punk, which nobody knew what that was. I didn't know what that was. She lives in that world, so she knew what that was. Look it up. It's kind of interesting what crust punks are. And there's all sorts of different categories of punks, like there is for everything. And it's an interesting study in character. Each one of them does punk different. So look up crust punk. Kind of fun to read about. I finished all that by again reminding people that this game is all about applying the tools so that you get great script and you can go up and do really well, even on high demand professional stages. I also talked at this point about continuing to develop our pedagogy, like how we learn this stuff, because it's hard to get this stuff out of the intellectual and down into people's neurology where you can actually use it. I mentioned like how much I learned and how fast when I actually started getting writing jobs in Hollywood, because I was highly motivated to keep those jobs. So I paid really close attention to everything, and I worked really hard to absorb the techniques. But it was also because I was surrounded by really good writers, and I could see what they were doing. I had a clear model, could break it apart and see what the jokes were, see how different they were than my jokes, make adjustments, and then start competing with those guys on their own techniques, which is the game. You just learn every technique you possibly can and then get as good at it as you possibly can. And at some point, you're strong enough to start getting paid and beat other people who can do similar things, just not as well, hopefully, as you. Let's see. So finally, I mentioned talking about one of the things I'm going to try to implement going forward now is, since we've got the Comedy Writers Colony folders set up so people have a way to meet online with each other, I'm going to try to create teams so everybody gets a 3 or 4 person team, which means like you can rotate between being talent or writer or head writer or director or producer or researcher, whatever you want to be within a writing staff and a writing team and a production team, but all generated towards getting you at least a minute, somewhere between 1 minute and 10 minutes of A+ quality material. Until you've got, at least 10 minutes of pro material, that just is going to work and you're so comfortable doing it, you're going to have a hard time in stand-up doing anything. I see a lot of the people who do well on Kill Tony, and it's great, but they kind of go through a minute that's okay, and that's the standard. The bar there is about, okay. Like, it's not like killer stand-up. If you gave a headliner a minute and said, go up and do, kill in that minute, they could do it, and with all sorts of little micro techniques and everything else to get a lot of laughs in a minute. It's hard on young comics or early comics or amateurs to do that, or non-comics. But the idea for the workshop is to get everybody 5 to 10 minutes, start with one, I guess, of killer stuff that they've got great script, they can really perform it, they're running it on a really strong character that they are comfortable doing and is vivid. They can communicate to the audience around the bit so that it feels real and conversational. And then their psyche is correct. Like, they're okay with this. They like this. They want to do 5 to 10 minutes of pro-level material. In other words, they're not resisting. They're not balking. They're not thinking, well, I'm an artist. Don't touch me or my stuff in any way. Don't change me. Entertainment is almost always a committee art. It's built by people who are trying to get things done fast, but keep them high quality. And that's the Hollywood method. So again, trying to get a little bit of Hollywood method into stand-up versus the stand-up method, which is usually just the individual. Maybe they'll run things past their buddies, but they don't work nearly as hard or as long or as intensely or as wide-ranging that they do in Hollywood. So it's a lot to expect people to put together really great stand-up consistently over and over when it's just them doing everything. So I'm trying to expand that notion and say, let's draw from the Hollywood system, see if we can use that to get better quality stuff so everybody gets more success, which is always the idea. Okay, so that's it for week 39. 39, 49, 48. I hate doing the numbers here because I always, half the time I post something and it's the wrong thing. I have to go back and re-AI the YouTube cover. So hard to do visuals these days. So week 48, that's the recap for Stand Up Accelerator. We'll see you again next week.